Bet you know that tune. Okay, well, we're going to be talking about that one today, but we're talking about the concept available in that. We're still talking about voicings and when to pick which voicing or what voicing. I want to return to the idea of the Lydian dominant. So, we talked in the last video, and we've talked in other videos about the 4-chord, 4-7, 4-chord in a blues, or ending on the Lydian dominant. It's a great sound. Can't go wrong. It's a really cool open way to end things. Now, there's another thing that happens in many jazz standards. It's a very common progression, and that is where we change the minor chord, the 2 chord in a key, to a dominant. And so what do you do when you have a dominant 7? Now, classical musicians and jazz musicians too will call this secondary dominants a lot of times. So you have D minor, G7, C, that's 2-5-1. But then you have D7, G7, C, and that's 5 of 5. D is 5 of G, and G is 5 of C. So we have 5 of 5, 1. But it does function as a secondary dominant in terms of the root motion, but in terms of many jazz musicians, we want a different color than just plain old 5 of G. So we want, whenever we see a 2 chord in jazz that's dominant and not minor, we're going to treat it as a Lydian dominant, as is the case with that song there, Take the A Train. So the 2 chord is D7, and we're putting sharp 11 on there. Now, you can play whole tone scale and a bunch of other things, and some people will have things to say about that. We're doing specific treatments today and in all these videos so that you can get your voicing act together. When do I play a voicing? Why? We're still talking about those really cool jazz voicings and the things you can do to make them work for you everywhere. So that's the idea. So in this example today we have what's called II7, and the 2 chord in the key of C is D minor, and now it's become a 7 chord, a major chord, and so that means we have the Lydian note available, and the Lydian triad is a whole step above the one we're on, right? Remember that? So this is what we can play. And there's our voicing. And that's why that melody worked. So I went this way. There it is. And then we go to the 2 chord from there. Nice sound. But this is the key. This is the one we're looking for. So when we're playing a song and we have the 2 chord and you want to do something unique or something different or something that just sounds wonderful, you make that 2 chord Lydian. Here's another famous song. Bet you know that one, but so on. So I just wanted to show you again what I did there. All the other stuff you could get to, but getting there starts with an approach to our voicings. And the voicings we're choosing there is what we're talking about today is II7. The 2 chord in The Girl from Ipanema, the 2 chord is G minor because it's in the key of F. But Jobim goes like this, like Duke Ellington did. To a G7. And we are going to make that Lydian. Now, you might do this when you're improvising. You might do this behind a soloist and kind of help bump them a little to a new place. You might want to be careful when you're doing it with a vocalist, but it's going to be a really neat color. I urge you to check that song out from a different angle. So there's, again, another place. 2 chord made dominant, II7. There's another Jobim tune that comes to mind called Desafinado. And he actually goes right to that. So we'll leave the overhead on that one. And there you go. That's a perfect example. So I think Keith Jarrett has a song too. There's another one that comes to mind. Lucky Southern. So this E7, it's in the real book, I think. That's instead of doing just plain old E minor, it's an E7, and we put our Lydian triad on that, which is F sharp. Go from there. So you're getting the idea. It's a common chord progression and very, very, very well recognized. So 2 chord made dominant. The 2 minor 7 made dominant, and you treat it like a Lydian dominant, and you can't go wrong. So won't spend a lot of time on this video because you know your stock jazz voicings, you know your Lydian triad, so go through your real books and fake books and find all of the things that we've talked about so far and start using your flashcard idea and plugging these in, and your 2 chord is going to sound great. It's always an option, so you can do that. Now if somebody's like, whoa dude, what was that? That sounded weird. Don't always let that stop you, because sometimes people just don't have the ears to hear it yet, and if you play it a few more times, they'll like it. So always a good thing to remember. New sounds coming into the band might shock the bandmates. Of course, if you're with jazz musicians, then they're all going to be like, wow, man, you're starting to sound really hip. So either way, stay with it, and I'll see you next time. We're still playing the blues. We're just hitting it from different angles.